Game shows in the 1960s were largely the domain of Mark Goodson and Bill Todman. They were the superstar producers of that era's most successful game shows, including To Tell the Truth, I've Got a Secret, and What's My Line. The one exception, the one game show that was successful that they weren't producing, was created by Monty Hall and Stephen Haydos and was called Let's Make a Deal. Hall and Haydos were interested in creating a game show where the host interacted with the audience. Let's Make a Deal featured costumed contestants chosen randomly from the audience who played several different mini games and often had to choose between winning cash or hidden items that could be either amazing prizes or gag gifts called zonks.
In this packet of money which I'm going to give you, you see a 50 on the top and a 50 on the bottom and more bills in between. All yours, or you could have what's behind the curtain where Carol is standing instead.
I'll take the money.
You'll take the money. What was behind the curtain that Diane could have had? And back there we had a magnificent complete stereo system.
That's the lead.
Hall's job wasn't easy. While he knew what each game and prize would be on each episode, each show was completely ad-libbed. He wasn't working from a script or cue cards. It was also intensely fast-paced for the day. MCs who filled in for Hall from time to time if he was sick called hosting Let's Make a Deal the hardest job on television. Hall credited his success and speed to years as a sports play-by-play announcer. Joining Hall were model Carol Merrill, a Wisconsinite and one of the first television models to be known by her full name, and announcer Jay Stewart, who also announced shows like Sale of the Century and Tic-Tac-Doe. The three worked together on Let's Make a Deal from 1963 to 1977. When creating Let's Make a Deal, Hall and Haydos played several mock games with local community groups to try and get a sense of how the show would work and if audiences would like it. When staging these shows, they used only envelopes and a rubber chicken. Eventually, they staged this version for 300 people and were shocked by the enthusiastic audience response despite the lack of any actual prizes. Executives from ABC were in attendance, and Hall was stunned to find that one of the ABC execs just didn't get the show and didn't think it could be sustained beyond a single episode. He restaged the same stunt for NBC executives and got the same great response from the audience, but had the same problem with the executives. They just didn't get it. An assistant finally convinced NBC to shoot a pilot. The pilot went fantastically, but Hall and Haydos didn't hear anything for nearly a year. After much coaxing behind the scenes, again by assistants, NBC took Let's Make a Deal to air in 1964. Of course, the show was immediately a big hit. But there was one big difference about those early episodes of Let's Make a Deal as opposed to the show that you know. And that's, there were no costumes. The people in the audience simply wear suits and dresses.
Over here, Wendell's come up here with a great big box. And he's standing there because the deals continue right now, Maggie, and I'm going to make a little proposition. Would you like to go ahead and make another deal? If you want to trade in the $30 that you have, I'll give you what's in the box. You can either keep the 30 or go for what's in the box. You want to make a deal?
I'm a gambler.
You're a gambler. Give me back the money. You didn't hold it very long. I take the $30 back. And you know what you won for $30, Maggie? You won a fur coat. Show her the fur coat, Wendell. There it is. How about that?
It's better than anything I got.
Astute viewers noticed that Hall chose contestants at random and began to try and think of ways to get his attention. During the second week of taping, a woman arrived with a sign that said, "Roses are red, violets are blue. I came here to make a deal with you." Monty stopped to read the sign and chose the woman to play. Of course, the next week, everyone had a sign. And then people started to wear funny hats to try and get Monty's attention. Finally, they started wearing costumes. Hall, who thought the costumes gave the show a great deal more color, insists, though, that he always picked people at random because while he liked the costumes, he didn't want people to think it was a costume contest, that they need to have a high quality costume in order to get picked. The one costume he couldn't stand, though, were grown men dressed as babies. As long as Monty was in charge, no adult babies were allowed in the audience. The idea that anyone in the audience could be a contestant was a new one and helped make the show extremely popular, both on the air and to attend live in person. From nearly the beginning, Let's Make a Deal received so many requests to come to tapings that there was a 3-year wait for tickets. As much as the contestants loved the prizes, the at-home audience adored seeing the zonks.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, $1,410 altogether. Your husband's going to kill you?
He will.
My advice is don't take off the helmet when you go to bed. All right. You turned down $1,410, and what have we got for you behind that curtain? You've got yourself a total disaster kitchen.
Hall and his team put a great deal of effort into making these zonks creative and would spend thousands of dollars creating double-decker bathtubs and cars with 2 front ends. Now, the dirty secret of Let's Make a Deal is that if you won a zonk, you were entitled to that zonk by law. So once the show finished taping, zonk winners would often be given a color TV set in place of the zonk, since the zonks had been so expensive to produce. Still, the occasional contestant did opt to take home their giant rocking chair or double-decker bathtub, which would cost the show much more money than most of the traditional big prizes. Game shows had sort of fallen out of favor in the 60s, but Let's Make a Deal was so popular in the 70s that it helped usher in a sort of game show renaissance. Mark Goodson and Bill Todman viewed Deal's popularity with keen interest. In the 1960s, the duo had up to 9 network game shows on the air at any given time. But in 1971, they were down to just 1, a newly revived version of Password. They began formulating a show of their own that would in many ways emulate Let's Make a Deal. And to do it, they decided to revive The Price is Right. The Price is Right had initially premiered in 1956 and aired until 1965 and featured Bill Cullen as host. Cullen was a popular I've Got a Secret panelist and himself a longtime game show host. In fact, he would continue hosting various game shows until 1988. This version of the show featured 4 contestants, taking turns bidding in auction style and attempting to get closest to the price of an item without going over. The winner was whoever won the largest amount of money in prizes. In this clip, the contestants are bidding on a houseboat.
1850 is the bid. Miss Lowe, your 15 tops 1850.
I'll say 2,000.
2,000 even, Mr. Jadron. You are 1750.
I'll say $2,250.
$2,250. Miss Steele, you're at 1,800.
I'll say 2,300.
2,300 even. Everybody gets one final bid. Now, Mr. Waldrop, you're 1,850. Top is 23. This is your last bid.
3,000, Bill.
3 is the final. Miss Lowe, your 2 tops 3.
Price is Right became extremely popular in the mid-50s after the quiz show scandals wiped out a good deal of its competition. For the revival, Goodson and Todman decided to remove the auction element, which had never really made sense, and have the contestants make single bids on an item, with the winners having a chance to play one of a variety of pricing games.
The Rye Crisp is 41 cents. Now we'll put that up here. That's the lowest price product among the high ones, so let's take those off. If each of these products is less than 41 cents, you win that trailer. Now, let's see here. The baking soda, it is 28 cents. You're all right. There we are. 28 cents. Leave it just like that. The cookie mix is 39 cents, and you're all right. Now, how much is this? It must be less than 41 cents. It is 23 cents, and she wins too. We'll be back after this message.
The Price is Right would also feature contestants selected from the studio audience, with that part of the show and the new pricing games clearly emulating the style of Let's Make a Deal. Goodson and Todman even selected Dennis James to host the new Price is Right. James was an early television pioneer with a number of firsts to his name. He was the first person to appear in a television commercial and the first person to appear on videotape. Not coincidentally, he was also the regular fill-in host for Let's Make a Deal whenever Monty was sick. The duo planned for James to host a weekly syndicated version of Price is Right. This new show, though, caught the attention of CBS, who was looking to re-enter the game show arena after having not aired any game shows for nearly 4 years. But CBS had one caveat. They wanted Bob Barker to host The Price is Right. Bob was a member of the Sioux Nation who started as a radio DJ before becoming the host of Truth or Consequences in 1956 and staying with that show until 1974. Goodson and Todman understood Barker's bona fides and agreed to make Barker host of the daily network version of The Price is Right that would air on CBS. As a consolation prize, though, they made Dennis James host of the weekly primetime syndicated version of The Price is Right, which aired simultaneously with the Bob Barker daytime version for 5 years.
Now, you have 3 out of the 4. If you get that one down there, too, you can just go screaming if you like because you'll win it automatically. Now, this one is books, or are books, however you want to use the grammar, and John will tell you about those while you look.
Right, Childcraft, the How and Why Library, 15 volumes filled with stories, art, and music.
Look at the price of $180. Is the actual retail price higher or lower than $180?
Well, I really think it's higher.
Higher? All right, she says higher. The actual retail price, I'm sorry, is lower. Now, Nancy, that one disappears. And if you do this to yourself, if the bonus appears here, you've won it. If it appears here, you've won it. If it appears here, you've won it. But if it appears here, you have not won it. Are you anxious to see where it is? Okay, then let's light up the board and see where the bonus is. You own that mink coat. It's worth $2,000. Here it is. Come on up here with it. This is your coat, Nancy.
No, I have to go somewhere.
Tonight? Don't leave yet. You may be in the showcase. Stay until the show is over, okay? You look absolutely gorgeous. Now go relax a moment. We'll look for you if you are in the showcase, all right?
Barker, however, proved to be the ideal host for The Price is Right. Audiences loved him immediately, and he proved adept at not only steering the show, but coaxing funny, genuine, and emotional reactions from the contestants, while always having a witty comment at the ready when the moment demanded it, as in this clip featuring an infamous wardrobe malfunction.
Yolanda Bowsley, come on down! And now, here's the star of The Price is Right, Bob Barker!
Goodness, thank you very much. Welcome to The Price is Right. What is all this? What? I have never had a welcome like this. Now, just a minute. I have a feeling that this is not legitimate. I know you truly love me, but you don't really love me this much, do you?
Bob, they have given their all for you.
Yeah.
The very first prize on The Price is Right would prove to be an embarrassment for Bob years later. It was a fur coat. As Barker's interest in animal causes grew, he asked producers to stop offering furs as prizes, which they did, and he instituted his now famous sign-off, help control the pet population.
Yes, I am.
Good.
Thank you. Bob Barker reminding you to help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed or neutered. Bye, buddy.
The show's other famous catchphrase, "Come on down," was coined by longtime game show announcer Johnny Olson, a Minnesota native who announced the show until his death in 1985. He was succeeded by Rod Roddy, whose inspirational weight loss journey was often highlighted on the program. He ultimately lost 200 pounds during his time on the show. Barker and the announcers were also accompanied by more than 25 women and now men who have served as the so-called Barker's Beauties, the models for the show. The first two Barker's Beauties were Anitra Ford and Janice Pennington, with Pennington appearing on the show until the year 2000. The Price is Right has gone on to be the longest-running game show in television history, and Barker its longest-serving host. He hosted The Price is Right for 35 years and 6,586 episodes. Before the success of Price is Right, one of the few shows that Goodson and Todman still had on the air back in the 60s was being canceled. That show was The Match Game, which was originally a much different show than the one you're likely thinking of. Now, this version of The Match Game did still star Gene Rayburn as host. Rayburn was a stage and screen performer who replaced Dick Van Dyke as the lead in Broadway's Bye Bye Birdie and was the original announcer for The Tonight Show. But this version featured two teams of three that were each captained by a celebrity. The teams would get points based on how many of its members wrote down the same answer to boring questions like, "To a rich man, blank is nothing."
$100.
To a rich man, $100 is nothing. Mere bagatelle. Betty White, what do you say?
I've been with cheaper rich men than you, $5.
$5.
I know some rich men 10 cents ago.
Joan, what is your answer?
I've heard of poor millionaires, but I said $100.
100 is an F.
The show was not particularly well liked or particularly exciting. And NBC canceled it after about a year, with 6 weeks still left to tape and air. Frustrated, question writer Dick DeBartolo, who more famously wrote for Mad Magazine, decided to try writing funnier questions like, "Mary likes to pour gravy all over John's blank." Figuring they had nothing to lose, Mark Goodson okayed the more risque questions, and these questions were a big hit, and the ratings for the show spiked, causing NBC to reverse their decision and renew the show. Gameplay continued in the same format, and this new type of question was really only ever peppered in amongst the normal bland questions. But it had revived interest in the show, which continued to do fairly well, if not spectacularly, in the ratings, even when scheduled against cult soap opera Dark Shadows. Still, Match Game was ultimately canceled in 1969. Then, in 1973, CBS, inspired by the success of the revived Price is Right, asked Goodson and Todman to relaunch the Match Game. This new version of the show had bigger cash prizes and more celebrities, with two contestants vying against each other to match a panel of 6 celebrities. A much greater emphasis was put on risque questions and on comedy.
The snake said, "That Eve is really ugly. Instead of Adam's rib, it looks like she was created from Adam's
Foot.
foot." Now, wait a minute. She thinks the foot is an unattractive part of the anatomy. And I think she's wrong. No, I think you're right.
I think I'm right.
The foot is not the most attractive part of one's body. What do you say to that?
We all have our little fetishes, don't we?
Yes, we do.
I think that question stinks. I wish to say that in front before I show my answer.
Okay.
See what I mean, Mr. Goodson?
I wish somebody would steal his answers. I mean, his glasses and his hearing aid.
Freudian.
Bun.
Instead of his good, it's created from Adam's bun.
The panel of Match Game included such luminaries as Fannie Flagg, a comedian and writer best known for the book Fried Green Tomatoes, Marcia Wallace, who played Carol on The Bob Newhart Show and later Mrs. Krabappel on The Simpsons. Nipsey Russell, a comedian known for his comic poems. Richard Dawson, an actor who had found fame playing Newkirk on Hogan's Heroes. Jack Klugman, the irascible actor and star of The 12 Angry Men and The Odd Couple. Charles Nelson Riley, a successful Broadway actor and director, and Brett Summers, a Broadway and television star who was then Klugman's wife and was brought onto the show at his suggestion. She and Charles Nelson Riley in particular became so popular thanks to their appearances on the show that their match game popularity eclipsed any previous fame either of them had ever known. And Goodson and Todman decided to add them as regular panelists, appearing on nearly every episode. Each round of play on this new match game ended with the so-called celebrity match, where the winning contestant would try to match a single celebrity of their choice for a chance to win up to $5,000. Richard Dawson quickly became the favorite for this round, thanks to his uncanny knack for being able to match the contestants most of the time.
Okay, $5,000 at stake here. Now, Darcy, would you suggest an answer you think matches Richard's answer? Peter
Rabbit?
You're saying, oh, you don't like that answer? No. Two people like it, the rest thinks it's rotten.
People laughed at pea.
That's right, they laughed at pea soup. Okay, Richard, for $5,000, may we see your answer? She says Peter Rabbit.
I don't know if it's just not my week.
Really?
All I could think was of the other game show and the host, you know.
Peter Marshall.
And I thought, why should I plug him? I plug
Dawson was so popular in this part of the game that producers eventually introduced the Star Wheel, which contestants would spin to choose their celebrities for them. This was done in order to give the other celebrities more chances to play the game. Ironically, the very first spin of the Star Wheel landed on Richard Dawson.
Ready? All right, good luck to you, my dear. Give it a spin. It must make one complete revolution. And here we go. It's slowing down, and let's see if you're going to stop in one of the gold star areas. And you just missed it. You're going to be playing. Now, wait a minute. No. Now, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Hold on. Just a minute here. Now, wait a minute. No, you sit down there. Get back here. Do what I tell you to. I'm going to get my big black whip out, and you're all going to...
What that wheel cost us, and it's right back to Richard.
Oh, well, I'll get there if you working. Come on down here, Cindy. You are going to be playing for $2,500. And remember, to collect that amount of money, you must match one of our celebrities exactly, and that's Richard. And good luck to you.
The record-breaking popularity of Match Game led Goodson and Todman to develop another matching game. In this one, whole families of contestants would compete against each other as they tried to match the top answers given in national surveys. I'm, of course, talking about the Family Feud.
100 people surveyed. Top 3 answers on the board. Here's the question. Name a piece of sports equipment that is made of wood. Yeah.
A hockey stick.
Hockey stick. One answer will beat it, Truman.
Baseball bat.
A baseball bat. What are you going to do?
Dawson naturally thought he was a shoo-in for host. Besides his popularity and success on Match Game, he had an understanding with Goodson and Todman that he'd be given the opportunity to audition to host any new game shows they were developing. Dawson was surprised then when he heard that Goodson and Todman were planning a new pilot, but with William Shatner as the host. Dawson threatened that unless he got an audition, he would stop speaking on the Match Game. The producers gave in, and not only did Dawson get the audition, he won the job. As a host, he proved to be a genial, witty, and mischievous companion for the families of contestants. And of course, he was quite the ladies' man.
I love all of you. I'll never get to see Kim again. Thank you, babe. Bye. That's for luck. Come here. So rude. Marvelous, lady. Oh.
Hi,
I get a
Richard.
chance?
Two.
Who's gonna kiss?
Okay. Hi, Richard.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
I can't complain.
Oh, God, thank you. Bye. I love you.
Hello. Is that... Thank you, darling. Well, I tell you honestly, we've been on the air, I think, a year and a half. That's the first time on those introductions I've ever gotten aroused. Now, no, I'm leveling with you. That's the most passionate kissing. I usually kiss for luck, but I got involved a couple of times there.
The kissing started with an older woman contestant who was nervous to be on television. Richard gave her a kiss to calm her nerves. Well, then every other woman on the show that day wanted a kiss. And then every woman on the next episode wanted a kiss. The kissing took off. The network, though, was nervous and told Richard to stop the kissing. When Richard announced on the show that he would end the kissing, the network received thousands of letters imploring Richard to keep on kissing. Aside from all the kisses, Dawson would eventually find real love on the Family Feud when he met contestant Gretchen Johnson.
Something people have installed by a professional. You said a TV? Survey said? I guess you plug those in, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I suppose.
Telephone, number one answer. Good way to wake up fast. You said? Alarm, survey said? There it is. That's good. Cold shower, number one.
After the show ended, he asked Gretchen to dinner. The two ended up falling in love, dating for many years, and even marrying in 1991. They would remain together until Dawson's death. Prizes in this era were still relatively small, ranging from a couple of hundred to a few $1,000s, except for those lucky few who won a car on The Price is Right or Let's Make a Deal. Still, the absolute top amount of money that anybody won on a game show of the era was $40,000, except that is for Michael Larson, who won more than $110,000 on a show called Press Your Luck. Press Your Luck was hosted by Peter Tamarkin and was on the air for only about 4 years. The show featured contestants answering trivia questions for a shot at winning a prize from a seemingly random flashing prize board. Press Your Luck is a fairly unremarkable show made more memorable by the cartoon whammies who, like Let's Make a Deal zonks, could steal your prizes.
One more spin, you're gonna go. Stop it all. Not over. $0.
Apparently a game show producer's dream, Michael Larson was the ultimate underdog, an unemployed ice cream truck driver from Ohio who not only had to borrow money to travel to the taping, he bought the shirt he wore on the show that day at a thrift shop for 65 cents. As a player, Michael seemed almost preternaturally lucky. With every spin of the board, the odds of hitting a whammy and losing all of your money was 1 in 6. Michael spun the board 45 times. With each new spin, he risked losing everything, and the tension and excitement was palpable.
1,000 and a spin. 74,851. Michael, you have rolled 31 times. Without a whammy, 31 times. You're gonna press again? Oh, 74,851. Michael, big bucks, please. 4,000 and a spin.
Michael only hit a whammy on his very first spin. He never hit another one. It took him so long to make all of his spins that the taping far exceeded the 30-minute time slot and had to be split into 2 episodes. Meanwhile, the control room began to feel something strange was going on. And indeed, it was. Michael wasn't lucky at all. Months before going on the show, Michael began intently studying game shows. While watching Press Your Luck, he realized the prize board wasn't truly random, but relied on a relatively small group of 5 patterns. He also realized that panels 4 and 8 never had whammies. By learning the panels and knowing when number 4 or number 8, learning the patterns, and learning when numbers 4 or 8 would be illuminated, he was able to exploit the information and be sure that he only ever hit 4 or 8, never hitting a whammy, and allowing him to win an unheard of amount of money.
So how did he do it?
What he did is he knew when the 4 was going to come up.
Stop! 3,000 and a spin!
And he counted a few numbers before that. So watch for number 2 to light up.
Okay.
When number 2 comes on,
there.
We go 2, 12, 1, 9, 4.
2, 12,
2,
1,
12, 1, 9, 4. 2, 12, 1, 9, 4.
Oh my God.
So if you ignore the prizes completely and just focus on where the lights land.
This is what we call the show Press Your Luck. Stop! 3,000! Stop! 4,000! You can hear a pin drop. 5,000!
Producers had never seen anything like it and did not know what to do about it. Still, they smelled a rat. They met the next day to try and figure out how he did it, how to stop it, and what to do. Should they give him his money? Ultimately, they found that Michael hadn't actually broken any rules. He had just figured out a way to beat the system. Still, CBS only allowed the episodes to air once and without promotion. In the wake of Michael's games, they changed the system running the prize board from 5 patterns to 32. Still, it took 19 years for producers to figure out exactly how Michael had done it, which they only did after he appeared on Good Morning America to reveal his secrets in an interview. Michael, meanwhile, rather than rest on his laurels, continued to attempt get-rich-quick schemes. When a local radio station ran a contest asking listeners to match numbers to the serial numbers on dollar bills, Michael took all of his winnings, all $110,000 out of the bank in $1 bills, and spent countless days trying to match the serial numbers. Neighbors heard about the bags of cash and broke in, stealing nearly $50,000. Michael was also planning a scheme that would involve Jeopardy. None of these schemes worked, though, and Michael was ultimately left penniless. Of course, Michael Larson's Press Your Luck victory brings to mind the 1950s game show scandals, a topic that was also on the mind of former actor and singer and future talk show host Merv Griffin. Merv had recently been the host of a show called Play Your Hunch for Goodson and Todman. One day, sometime in about 1963, he and his wife were discussing the game show scandals and realized there hadn't been a good question and answer game show on the air since that time. Merv's wife, Jewel Ann, suggested a show where the questions and answers were reversed. She said 5,280. Merv replied, "How many feet are in a mile?" Merv loved the idea, and he took it to NBC, who bought it on the spot without even ordering a pilot. The name of the show was Jeopardy, and it debuted on March the 30th, 1964, hosted by Art Fleming, an actor who was initially worried he couldn't hack it as a game show host, until his agent gave him some simple advice. He told him, just act like you're a game show host.
Women for 80.
You are 60 from the lead. The answer is the Daily Double. There it is, the second Daily Double. Now, Kim, you can make a big move here. You have $240, but Karen is in the lead, $60 further on with $300, and this is a plain Daily Double. What is your wager to be?
60.
$60. If you're correct, of course, you'll be in a tie with Karen. Women. The category, the answer is her daughter, by her first marriage, wed Napoleon's brother and became mother of Napoleon III.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. That's
Who
all right.
is Anne Boleyn?
No, it was Josephine. Josephine of Beauharnais. All right, try to again, please, Kim.
Fleming hosted the show until 1979, winning 2 Emmys for his work. This early version of the show worked very much the same as the version you're familiar with. There were multiple categories, a double Jeopardy round with questions worth double points, and the final Jeopardy round where contestants could risk all or some of their winnings. The show even featured the familiar thinking music, which was written by Merv Griffin himself.
All right, now with the category children's stories, the final Jeopardy answer is a dodo, a lorry, and an eaglet swam in a pool made by her tears. Good luck. Time's up, the pens are down. Kent with $30. Let's see what you've written as your question. He has Who is Sleeping Beauty. No, I'm sorry, sir. That is incorrect. 30 went for nothing. That's fine. He has his 30. All right, now Karen with 120 going in. Are you going to be right or wrong? She has Who is Alice in Wonderland is right. Now, you had 120 going in. What did you go for? 120, 240. But at this point, you're tied with Kim for the lead. Let's see what happens, and let's find out what the wager is. Kim with 240. She has Who was Cinderella? No, I'm sorry. 240. Zero. How about that? We have co-champions. Karen and Kim, 240 each.
When Merv revived the show in 1984, he hired Alex Trebek, whose first gig as a game show host was on a show called The Wizard of Odds, which had been produced by, of all people, Alan Thicke. Trebek then hosted a series of game shows, including High Rollers, Double Dare, and the $128,000 Question, and was a popular celebrity contestant on other game shows, appearing on Card Sharks, The Magnificent Marble Machine, and Celebrity Bowling. When he started on Jeopardy, he never expected the show to have the success and longevity it has. He's been the host of Jeopardy for 36 years, presenting some 400,000 answers on the show. And he's received a Guinness World Record for the most game show episodes hosted by the same presenter. At the time, 6,829. He has won 15 Emmys, with the show itself winning the Emmy for Best Daytime Game Show 33 times.
All right, our pens are down, and we're going to begin with the player who was in third place. That's you, Deb. You don't look too happy at the moment. You're a political science teacher. Let's find out what you thought the correct final Jeopardy question was with regard to outer space or the solar system. You said Pluto. One that is incorrect, and secondly, you didn't phrase it as a question. How much did you bet? $20. Well, you wind up with 2,480, and you could be the Jeopardy champion just by playing it as safely as you did.
I know my own strength.
All right. Ed Osawa was our returning champion. On our last program, ladies and gentlemen, he won $19,000 in cash. Let's see what he did with his $8,900 today. First of all, the final Jeopardy question you thought was, what is Earth? You're absolutely right, Ed. If you did what you did yesterday and went for the big bundle, you'll wind up with $17,800. How much did you wager? $8,900, giving you $17,800 in the lead. Oh, boy. Ken, you have played magnificently. You wound up with $10.5 grand going into Final Jeopardy. Let us see, first of all, what you thought the Final Jeopardy question was. Oh, dear. You said, what is Uranus? That's wrong. What'll it cost you? 7,500, leaving you with 3,000. That means that Ed Osawa with 17,800 is the champion, and a two-day total of $36,800. Congratulations, Ed. Oh, boy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning us in. I hope you are as excited about today's match as we are. Ed's going to come back tomorrow to face two more challengers and continue as our champion and hopefully increase at the rate of about $17,000 or $18,000 a day. We'd love to see it happen, and we want you to be here if it does. Until then, Alex Trebek for Jeopardy. So long, everybody.
Thanks to Saturday Night Live, the show's celebrity tournaments have received special notoriety.
Let's just go to animal sounds for 600. This is the sound a doggy makes. Mr. Connery. Moo.
Celebrities have, of course, been a fixture of game shows since the very beginning. Less well known, though, are those stars who appeared on game shows before they were famous, appearing as contestants. People like Kirstie Alley, who was a contestant on The Match Game.
Harriet said, I'm worried about my husband. He keeps bringing home leftovers from work. The only trouble is he works in a blank.
Hospital.
In a hospital. That means he'd come home with a pair of tonsils in his pocket, or a gallbladder, some stones, and a few things like that.
A number of future celebrities appeared on The Dating Game.
Bachelor number 2. When you feel that you have to go run free, where do you go and what do you do?
I used to get in a closet, stretch my arms, bang them against the sides of the wall, you know, into the door, everything. I love it.
Okay, Bachelor number 2, what do you have at your house that I like?
Me, I think.
Okay, it's lady number 3. I've only been in this country 5 years, and there are some expressions I still don't understand. What does it mean, hanky-panky?
Well, let's see if you understand this. Playing around.
Playing around with what?
Welcome back to The Dating Game, and Farrah, you now must make a decision. The gentlemen over there, of course, are always intent on winning. The question is, which one will be selected in your mind? Will it be Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, or Bachelor number 3? Which one gets the dates?
Number 2.
Number 2, all right. All right, Bachelor number 2, that's terrific. Is there any particular reason, Farrah, why you selected Bachelor number 2 over the other fellas?
Because of the flowers.
Because of the flower. You like, he's going to send you that once more. Hey.
And of course, any game show fan will recognize this next contestant on The Price is Right.
And Vanna White, come on down. You are the first 4 contestants on The Price is Right.
Backstage, they have monitors that the fellows on the crew can watch what's going on out here, just like the monitors here. They're just like television sets. When Vanna was invited to come on down, one of them read her T-shirt where it says, "Get serious." And he said, I am. I thought you'd like to know that. Now,
That was 1980, 2 years before Vanna would make her Wheel of Fortune debut. At that time, Wheel of Fortune had already been on the air for 5 years, but it was hosted by former Love Connection host Chuck Woolery and Susan Stafford.
Hey, we're back. We're looking for a title of something. Kathy, it's your turn. You got $300.
Okay, come on. 500.
Come on, get into some big money now, Kathy.
Free spin.
$300.
Okay, is there an M?
A what?
M.
2 of them. Got $900, Kathy. We're looking for a title of something.
Okay, can I buy a vowel?
Sure, $250 is not in the puzzle. You lose your turn and you're $250.
I'd like to buy an E, please.
An E? Yes, there's an E. Okay.
I'll have to spin.
Okay, good luck.
Come on, 500.
Oh, be careful. 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 Oh, I don't know whether you knew it or not, but you just hit a bankrupt and there's your $650 gone. Sorry. Lee, to you.
Okay.
Come on, Lee, hit a 500.
Come on, a 500. Come on, a big one. A big one, a big one, a big one.
200.
Okay, is there a D?
Yes, there is. That sound means there are only vowels left in the puzzle. You can't solve one for less than 200, so tell me what it is.
Okay, Mr. Sandman.
You got it.
Wheel of Fortune was also created by Merv Griffin, who got the idea from playing hangman with his family. While Griffin only visited the Jeopardy set once or twice during its time on the air, he was a frequent guest at Wheel, which he considered his baby, even writing some of the puzzles himself. Still, the show was not doing that well in the ratings. It was placing third behind The Price is Right and reruns of The Love Boat. Stafford and Woolery decided to ask for a raise, which, to be fair, Merv was underpaying them. When Merv refused, they refused to come to set. Merv simply decided to hire new hosts. He discovered Pat Sajak on the local news doing the weather. And believe it or not, Sajak was reluctant to take the job. He was worried there wasn't anything for him to do as host besides say how many R's were in a puzzle. He realized, though, that he was being foolish and took the job.
400.
I would like an S, please.
All right, let's see. There are 4 S's. Before you say anything else, Barry, don't say anything because I want to tell you have $5,050. That's about 430 away from the camper trailer, but we're going to let you think about that for a minute. If you all turn around, we have some commercial business to take care of. Oh, we're sneaky. We'll be right back. Well, this has been an interesting round. Pam's sitting there with a $3,400 ring she would like to win. Kelly has a little bit of money, but Barry is really in control now with $5,050 and some great prizes you could get up to if you wanted to take another shot. What do you want to do?
I'd like to solve the puzzle, please.
For that money, what is this phrase?
The way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Or wallet. $5,050. I can't say it's a money. Way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Poor words never spoken. 5,050 outdoor fun.
Pat has been hosting the show now for 37 years, and Vanna has been on for nearly as long. A former Miss Georgia contestant, Vanna had had a couple of small acting roles to her credit, but was a big fan of Wheel of Fortune and wrote in to be a contestant, as she was on The Price is Right, but was instead selected to be one of the 3 women who rotated as letter turners. Sajak remembers Vanna as the most nervous of the 3, who were all on the show as a sort of trial basis, but Merv saw her potential and picked her as the permanent co-host. Vanna has never worn the same outfit on the show more than once. That means she's worn more than 6,000 different outfits. She also received a Guinness World Record in 2013, her records for most frequent clapper, and it's estimated that she has clapped at least 3.4 million times on the show. For many years, there were 2 versions of Wheel of Fortune, the nightly syndicated version and a daily network version on NBC, meaning that it was possible to watch new episodes of Wheel twice a day. Both were hosted by Pat and Vanna until 1989, when Pat left the daytime version to host his own late-night talk show. Rolf Benerschicke, placeholder for the San Diego Chargers, took his place. Rolf was later replaced himself by game show host Bob Goen until the daytime version of Wheel was ultimately canceled. Another strange fact about the show that many viewers have forgotten is the shopping segments. After each round, the winner had to spend their winnings by shopping.
F.
No, Barry.
Is there an M?
As in?
As in Mary.
Yeah, there are 2 M's. $3,000. 5 seconds.
Masonic Temple.
That's it. 3,000. Couple of M's help, huh? Masonic Temple it is. $3,000. What a nice number. Gourmet's Delight. Go ahead.
Well, for $2,800, I'll take the man's diamond ring.
You make it easy on our math department. I'll say $200 left.
And
Come on,
for $100, I'll take the rice cooker.
Okay.
And I'll take $100 on a gift certificate.
I think that about covers it, except for here's Jack.
This was added to the show after a network executive complained that the show wasn't exciting enough for female viewers. Shopping, though, was discontinued in 1987 to speed up the show and to lower the taxes paid by the winners, and because, frankly, it was always ridiculous. Wheel is now the longest-running syndicated game show in America, with more than 7,000 episodes to its credit, and is popularly known as America's Game. By the 1990s, game shows were once again on the decline. Few were on in prime time, with networks increasingly relying on dramas and sitcoms, and they'd been muscled out of daytime by the advent of the syndicated talk show. All of that changed with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Created in England and based on the big money quiz shows of the 50s, particularly the $64,000 question, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quickly became appointment viewing and a smash primetime hit across the globe. It kickstarted a new renaissance of game shows that is still going on today, with new versions of many of the shows we've talked about back on the air in some form or another. Plus, there are at least 2 cable channels devoted to showing game shows 24/7, making right now probably the very best time to be a game show fan. I want to thank you very much for joining me tonight for this look at the game shows of the 70s and 80s. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. If you have any questions for me, please put them in the live chat window and I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, while you're catching up with me and writing your questions, I'll let you know that we have another new class on the horizon. That one will be sometime next month, sometime in July. That class will be Hollywood Goes to War and will be all about Hollywood during World War II and specifically Hollywood's participation in the war efforts, the big stars who participated in war bond drives, the special films created just for the military, including a series of Warner Brothers cartoons that were classified top secret and never meant to be shown outside of to enlisted men, but which we have today and can watch. You'll see Disney films created for the war effort, and you'll learn about the stories of stars, some of whom even lost their lives for the American war effort. And all of that will be in July. We also have another great class that's coming up on the horizon, bringing us through the end of the year, and I hope you'll continue to join me for some of those as well. If you haven't already, you can email me at Eric, that's ERIC, at northmetrotv.com, and I'll put you on my email list. I'd also encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Not only are your subscriptions something that help me to keep doing these classes, it's a good way for you to make sure that you never miss a class or any of the other videos that I post on YouTube. I'm also working on a series of mini classes that'll only be 4 or 5 minutes to sort of whet your appetite here and there and to cover topics that are of interest to me that maybe wouldn't take up as much time as these more traditional classes that I've been teaching for a couple of years now, although not all of them on YouTube. That's a thing that, as many of you know, that we've started doing lately. I'm trying to think if I have anything else that I need to tell you about. You're emailing me, you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Hopefully you're telling your friends and families that they should watch these videos. More views, again, helps keep me in business. Let's see here. It looks like Jill says, thank you, Eric. Great show again. You're welcome, Jill. Always happy to see you attending these classes. What is thank you for such a fun show from Donald Rowan. Thank you, Donald. That's a very fun comment. I guess the answer is you're welcome. We'll wait and see if anybody else has any other questions before we sign off for the night. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm a big fan of old game shows. I would typically rather watch an old game show than a new one. So that's a big part of why we wanted to do these classes, to delve into it, because I was interested in what some of these stories were. My wife and I, we've been watching a lot of Buzzer, which is one of those weird HD channels that you can find. It's like one of those such and such point such and such channels. I don't remember what channel number it is, but we watch a fair amount of that. We're big fans right now. We really like Sale of the Century, which is a really weird and much too elaborate game show. We like that one a lot. Right now, our big one is we like watching Classic Concentration, 80s game show hosted by Alex Trebek, where they both are trying to the prizes are hidden under numbered squares, and they're trying to match one to the other one, and then when the squares are gone, it reveals a bigger puzzle that they have to try and figure out. We like that one a lot as well, especially because Alex Trebek is really mean on that show, and we think that that's really funny. Doug Kirkpatrick says, great research. Some things I knew, most were new things. Glad to know it, Doug. I'm glad we're coming up with some new stuff for you there. Other game shows you might want to check out if you're looking for new game shows. These ones might be a little bit harder to find, but we found a couple of old game shows on our vacation to England a couple of years ago that we were really fascinated by. One is, I think, called Bully, and it's a game show built around playing darts, where you answer trivia questions and throw a dart at a dartboard. That's a weird one. There's also this game show called The Crystal Maze, which is sort of like American Gladiators, but for regular people, where you run through this sort of giant arena and then you go into these little rooms, and each little room is a puzzle that needs to be solved. That's a fun one too. Well, it looks like we don't have any particular questions about game shows for tonight, so I suppose that I have done my job. I also suppose I should get out of the thing and go back to the big screen so you can all see my beautiful face. I want to thank you all again for joining me tonight. Again, I hope that you had a good time and that we'll see you again next month for our next class. Thank you again for watching. Please like this class, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. All of that great stuff. And again, I will see you sometime in July for our class about Hollywood during World War II. Have a great night, stay safe, and I will see you then as I continue to vamp while I get to the screen where I can end this class.